Andy Hall. I flew Fat Albert from 1999 through 2001. Got my start in aviation back in probably '85. My father was in the Army Air Corps at the tail end of World War II. He was quite a bit older when they had me. I'm the last of 6 kids. My father always wanted to fly, but obviously raising 6 kids working for the federal government didn't have a lot of extra money or opportunity. By the time I was, I'd say 15, he probably see that I lacked direction, like a lot of teenagers, and was looking for maybe something for me to be interested in. Like I said, it was always a dream and a passion of his, aviation. So one day he came to me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about flying?" And of course, I had not, and I said no. And he said, "Why don't we take you down to the local airport, stick you in an airplane with an instructor, and see what you think?" So I was like, "Yeah, that sounds awesome." So went down, went with an instructor. Like I said, I was about 15 years old, and ever since I took that flight, I was like, all right, now I know what I want to do. So my father was really instrumental in getting me started. I flew during high school, got my private pilot's license when I'd say I was about 17. Knew that I wanted to be a professional pilot as my career. One of 2 paths, civilian or military. About that time, Top Gun was coming out, the movie. I thought, you know what, there's no way I could even touch that. So I kind of wrote off the military side of the house, and I knew that if I wanted to be successful, I needed to at least get a college degree to start out my aviation career, take it to the next step. Never forget, one day I was walking through the student union at college. I was a junior, and there's a Marine first lieutenant in his dress blues next to a table running a video of T-34s flying in Pensacola for flight training, and aviation related. Naturally, I'm interested. I stopped to talk to him, and at the time I didn't even know the Marine Corps had airplanes. So I'm learning a bunch here when I'm talking to him. He gives me the spiel that, you know what, you can take these tests, and if you do well, you might be able to get a flight contract, go through the Navy Marine Corps flight training. And I thought, you know what the heck, I was already in great physical shape. I was a college soccer player. I was a little nervous about my academic aptitude for these tests. However, I already had a private pilot's license with probably 200 hours, so I thought I might be able to do all right. Make a long story short, I ended up getting that pilot contract, and when I graduated college, I went immediately then to the Marine Corps Officer Candidacy course in Quantico, Virginia, onto the basic school, and then on to Pensacola. Knew I wanted to be a C-130 pilot, was lucky enough to get C-130s, spent 2 years in Okinawa, Japan, flying all over Asia, came back to Cherry Point, North Carolina, did South America and Europe. So for a young guy, it was a tremendous opportunity. I knew that the Blue Angels had a C-130 they called Fat Albert, and it had opened the shows in the form of a jet-assisted takeoff. Once again, I thought, you know what, there's no way I could ever be selected, you know, even though this seems something very cool. But I thought, you know what, I'll take a look into it. As I started to look into it, I thought, okay, I meet all the requisites, you know, why don't I take it to the next step? Came down, did the interview process. The guys that were on the team in 1998 were absolutely fabulous, made me feel at home. And a year later, I was selected and walking through the doors of the squadron. Like I said, flew Fat Albert, doing jet-assisted takeoffs and supporting the Blue Angel Air Show from 1999 through 2001. When you're applying for a position like that, especially as a support officer in the role of flying Fat Albert, you know that you're going in to a squadron of very elite pilots, and you think, wow, you know, these guys are a different breed, there's something special, and for the most part, that is true. However, when you actually meet them and you realize that these guys put their socks and shoes and pants on the same way you do, like personalities, very little ego, just friendly people, and like I said, they were able to make that dream more attainable for me, that interaction I had with them, and I thought, you know what, if they can do it, I'm not that much different, I can do this as well. You know, I kind of like to think of Fat Albert as the backbone of the squadron, only because it's the six jets that really people come out to see on the weekend. However, we play a crucial role supporting those 6 jets, getting, you know, the men and women all the tools, the comm card, everything it takes to pull off that air show. So it's a complete support role, which I was already used to being a Marine, and it was just nice to be able to be a part of that. And at the air show site on Friday, see all those moving parts come together and know that you're a crucial part of that as a support officer flying Fat Albert. And then icing on the cake, you get to open the show with a jet assisted takeoff. I know they don't do JATO takeoffs anymore, and it's a real shame because it was kind of a crowd pleaser. There's 8 solid rocket bottles about this big. 4 go on each side of the back end of the airplane, and the system was originally designed to improve short field takeoffs for the C-130. However, the way we used it for the air show, we used it to increase our ability to climb at a steep angle once those bottles were lit. Without going too far into the weeds, it gave us the extra propulsion of one engine to be able to climb to 45 degrees and, you know, open that air show with the jet assisted takeoff. And an airplane that size, when you see something like that, it just really gets your attention. It almost looks like the airplane is on fire. It's just very cool. You know, probably the biggest thing with you can't talk about Fat Albert without mentioning it's a C-130, and you look at the history of this airplane and how long it has served the military. It's just a tremendous workhorse, and they're still manufacturing the airplane, I believe, today, and it's just a testament to just how special the C-130 is. In typical Marine Corps fashion, you know, we like to do the most with very little, and the C-130 accomplishes that mission. That you're able to do so many different missions and so many crucial things to support the Marine Corps. Now, on to Fat Albert. You know, you now take an airplane, a C-130 that's already capable of so much, you light load the thing with fuel, you gut all the systems out of the airplane that are just taking up extra weight, put minimum fuel on it, strap bottles on the back, and it's a real performer. It almost turns into from workhorse to Corvette, if you would, in terms of C-130. I know that's not a great likeness because there's nothing fast, nothing sexy about the C-130, but the roll, the JATO takeoff, Fat Albert, that's about as good as it gets in the C-130 in my opinion.
You good?
Yeah.
So from your time, what was going on when you were, those 2 years that you served on the squadron? What are a couple of maybe memories that stand out that you recall?
You know, it was a 3-year tour, and you know, I can't help but, if I'm going to talk about that tour, first and foremost are the 2 pilots that we lost my first year, Kevin Calling and Kieran O'Connor. So, you know, like I said, I can't neglect that portion of those 3 years because that was a real tragedy, and it was very hard for the squadron. Going past that, you know, we had to bring in replacement pilots. There was a bit of a transition, and it all worked out for a successful 3 years. But I'd like to think that those guys perished doing what they love, and you know what? They're somewhere looking down every Blue Angel air show and with a smile on their face and enjoying what they're seeing. You know, you're really hitting the nail on the head, because in the past the squadron has gone out of country, has gone to Hawaii, some other places that really aren't necessarily effective for us as far as recruiting goes. 99 through 01 was a time when we were, I think, a pretty crucial tool as far as trying to get the military manned. And during those 3 years, the most exotic we got was probably Canada. We stayed within our borders, we hit a lot of high schools, we did a lot of recruiting, but the focus was the continental United States and Alaska. And part of that was anytime we did an air show in Pennsylvania. I'm originally from New Cumberland, Pennsylvania. Harrisburg is right across the river. And it's funny, probably as a 15-year-old, I remember being on the Susquehanna bass fishing one afternoon on a Friday with my buddies, and here comes the Blue Angels flying over top A4s with A4s. They were doing the Harrisburg Air Show. So, you know, I remember that. It's a very distinct moment for me where I saw those jets and I thought, wow, that is completely unbelievable. So my 3 years, anytime we had the opportunity to go back to Pennsylvania, unfortunately we didn't do Harrisburg Air Show. I don't think there was a Harrisburg Air Show. But anytime I got to be back in Pennsylvania and see familiar faces, family members, friends from high school that would come out, you know, it was just a tremendous honor to be able to represent the Navy and Marine Corps. And also, these folks knew the humble beginnings that I had come from, and the FBO that I started flying at. So it was really pretty neat. You know, there's so many good memories. You know, every air show was unique. When you fly places like San Francisco, Seattle, and you look down at these mass amounts of people, it's just really incredible. One thing that does jump out at me, and it was more on a personal level. My father, my second year on the team, had developed pancreatic cancer, and we knew he wasn't going to live long. I got the opportunity to fly Diane Sawyer, and they did a piece for the Good Morning America at that point in time. So, you know, I was able to have an opportunity to talk about my dad on the Good Morning America show, and, you know, while he's lying sick in a bed somewhere with cancer. And we also had brought him down to the Patuxent River, Maryland Air Show, and the slot pilot at the time was Dave Silkey. And we were able to bring my dad into the briefing area, which is kind of sacred ground. And my dad was just a shell of a man at that point in time because his body was being ravaged by cancer. And I'll never forget it, Dave Silkey said, "You know what, Mr. Hall, I'm dedicating my performance today to you." And it was just really touching, not only for me, but my dad, who couldn't have even fathomed that I would get to this point in life, in the military. It was very touching. And then Keith Hoskins, during the actual air show at Patuxent River, when they were flying, before they actually started the day's demo, Keith said, "And we'd like to dedicate this show to Mr. Hall, who's, you know, father of one of our pilots here." So, like I said, that would probably, in my 3 years, be the most touching, the most memorable thing for me. There is no better attention getter than the Blue Angel Squadron. You know, we pull into town and we're flying over, you know, these small towns, big cities over the weekend. It gets people's attention, and it gets young kids' attention, and really that's the design of the squadron. And no matter what you want to do in life, more than likely there is some kind of parallel job or opportunity within the military. For instance, my son wants to be a veterinarian. You know, we got into looking into the military a bit, and you know what? There's military veterinarians. So just a wonderful opportunity in the military to basically do whatever you want to do. Because like I said, more than likely, there's some kind of parallel track there that will make you successful someday in the civilian sector. You know, probably the biggest takeaway that I like to pass on to people, especially young kids. I was an average student in high school, an average student in middle school. I struggled in academics. I was a BC student, and that was from working hard. I did no advanced math, no advanced science, because you know what? I didn't have the academic ability. However, I was a hard worker, and you know, I was willing to work extra hard to overcome some of my shortcomings. And I could have very easily been one of those kids in high school that had myself talked into, you know what, that's something I can't do. You know, I struggle in class, and I hear the teachers say, you know, you need this for college, you need that for college, and you do. But I like to look back and be like, you know what? If there wasn't some key mentors in my life along the way, I would have never been able to step out of the box and use the ability that I have to work hard to overcome some shortcomings I have to make my life a success. So, you know, anytime we visited a high school, I always like to find that kid that maybe reminded me of myself, that wasn't, you know, that wasn't thrilled about being in school, and the future didn't look real rosy to that child. And you know what? I could take that kid off to the side and be like, wasn't that long ago I was in your shoes, struggling through high school, getting B's and C's, but you know what? I worked hard, and if I can do it, you can do it.